Hello and welcome to this emergency transmission, emergency broadcasting. It is Esteban and Balkenberg, and we are not happy bunnies, are we, Esteban?
No, I would say I was a disgruntled bunny. Not a popular children's Christmas toy, but, the reality of the situation is what it is.
A booglin, or a boglin, if you remember those from the 90s.
Oh, boglins. Oh, look at that. First digression, and we're only 30 seconds in. But yeah, I remember boglins. They were fantastic.
Segway! Yes, they were great. And to be fair, I think this is a shit F1 drivers that aren't really F1 drivers react, fine brothers, take us down now, to F1 2016 Australian qualifying session, where we are literally probably going to shit a brick during this next half hour or so.
I've already put my donut pillow in the freezer.
Oh, joyous. So let's dive in. We're going to do a quick 25% random, nothing to do with our normal co-op stuff, where we've picked a team that we'd like to talk about after we've probably cleansed and catharticized ourselves over the shenanigan that was qualification today, and the shenanigan and just general state of Formula 1 2016 already on its first day.
Yeah, normally you'd expect some level of controversy in the opening rounds of the season, but usually it's to do with something that's happening within a team or on track, and not usually to such a wide extent with the sport itself. I mean, there's occasional rules that don't go down well, but,
I've not seen such a visceral reaction to something for such a long time. Because even when there's like, oh yeah, we're going back to turbos, people are like, oh no. But there's people are still like, oh, well, turbos could be good. But there's qualifying. Apparently they're having an emergency meeting tomorrow to look at scrapping it. But the damage is done as far as I'm concerned.
I don't want to peak too soon, as it were, but I will say that it was the first time I have switched off the television before Q3 has ended.
Was that with 4 minutes to go when everyone had already completed their laps?
Yeah, no, the exact moment was when Felipe Massa moved into the elimination slot with 90 seconds on the clock, and you could see his car being wheeled into the garage behind the Ferraris.
Oh.
Like he was up on the wheel rack, being gracefully revolved and slid back into his pit box.
Disgraceful. I'm in a Manor, you're in a Toro Rosso, aren't you? So.
That is correct, because I feel they are something, at least, that was positive to talk about.
That is true. So what do we feel about, now that we've seen this elimination in full flow, if I kick things off with the first of many of my issues with it, we've got in England a new TV channel that is broadcasting Formula 1, and they didn't know the rules, and they were disagreeing with the rules as it was unfolding in front of us. They clearly didn't understand it. Sauber and Haas clearly didn't understand it, since they were incapable of actually getting a car across the line with enough time to go. What the fuck were they all talking and doing about?
I think, they said, oh, we were caught out, but you'd sort of think this is something that they pay strategists a lot of money for, to sort of work this out.
Spends millions of pounds making an F1 team and an F1 car, forgets to buy a stopwatch and a calculator to understand what 90 seconds really means. And actually, it's not 90 seconds, it's, 90 times 2, 180. There you go. Hire me, bitches, hire me, is the problem. And actually, it takes slightly longer to get round Melbourne with an in and out lap. So you need to be out on track when the previous person is hitting the clock on elimination for you to even get your lap in. It's smacked of we don't have a fucking clue.
That's the thing David Coulthard raised during the coverage that to be fair, I respected him for bringing it up, right? Because it can't go down well at Channel 4 HQ or at Formula 1 management for the commentator on I think it's probably, or at least the BBC was, probably the most watched F1 coverage in Europe, if not the world.
Yeah.
For that, sort of key commentator to come out and just openly say this is rubbish, and the point he raised was that when someone's pushed into the elimination slot, it's not deciding the elimination of just one car, but two.
Yes.
And I know part of the decision behind taking this qualifying format was that what Bernie wanted to see was, to some extent, what happened. So a smaller team finds 2/10 somewhere that no one saw coming, and a complacent bigger team have a driver in the pits thinking he's safe, and then all of a sudden he's eliminated.
Yes.
Because he can't get out in time. And I can see on paper why that might appear to be a good idea. But lots of things appear on paper to be a good idea that in reality are not. And I just think it smacks, like you say, of not being organised enough in the concept stage. Yeah. Really not giving it the thought that was truly necessary. I mean, even an idiot could have seen what would have happened at the opening of Q1, and it's exactly what happened. I mean, not that I'm against racing action or anything, but Grosjean impeding Hamilton like that was completely unnecessary.
It was, yet you knew it was going to happen because they wanted the clear air. And also because, it's just, we know it's going to happen. And then it's only going to get more exasperated when you get to, Austria and Monaco, such short circuits. That's going to be an issue. But then you've also got it on flip side, the other side, where it's a flat 90 seconds no matter what circuit you go to. When you get to Spa or Austin or Azerbaijan, I think will be quite a long timed circuit as well. You're going to get people knocked out in trios because it takes you 2 minutes to get round the lap. It's no. Ah!
I think possibly its worst crime is that, despite having watched basically the whole thing, I don't think I really know where any of the cars belong, save the Mercedes and Ferraris.
Yeah.
I don't believe that Toro Rosso are, in actuality, the third fastest team.
No, they were probably the only team that actually understood the qualifying format and got it right.
I know that as much as I hated it, my controller issue has just returned.
Oh no.
It's all right. It's not. It's not even like our co-op season's a co-op season. Thanks, Codemasters. I noticed that Romain Grosjean's elimination lap was fast enough to save him, but he wasn't allowed to complete it.
But they showed it anyway, and they don't give any visual representation that he's knocked out, apart from him going grey and the clock moving up. But I don't think the clock was working at that point. So the same with Gutierrez as well. They showed them after you saw more of them once they were eliminated, completing a lap that would have been fast enough to go P4 or P5. And God knows how that would confuse anyone.
I tell you something else that I'm acutely aware of. I really don't believe Manor deserved to be down last.
No.
I think they had more to give. They were, less than 2/10 with Haryanto off the back of Gutierrez's Haas.
Yeah.
And they only did one fast lap.
Yeah, it was and they've gone for a really weird tyre strategy as well. They're the only team that appear to have done something really weird with the tyres for this round. So I wonder if they're just looking purely at race as opposed to actually qualifying for anything.
Well, I mean that's what to do, right? I mean, it's the race that pays points, and as Brucey always tells us, points mean prizes.
Brucey bonus.
Exactly, they'll get a Brucey bonus just by virtue of having a much harder compound tyre come race day, which, as Coulthard pointed out as well, that a lot of engineers are saying that there's much more advantage or incentive this season to run the hard compound tyre, or the harder of the available compounds, that he actually thinks 9th is a better place to be on the grid than 6th, 7th or 8th.
Well, yeah, because you've had to run in the soft tyres, you've taken the best life out of them already. And I suppose 8th and 9th, and it's more incentive to be higher up the grid as well, because before it used to be P11, used to be quite good. Or back when early 2010, 2011, God, this car's skiddy in turn 1, where you used to have like the Ricardo and the Verns and the Toro Rosso get knocked out in Q1 and then come through to like 8th and 9th in the race because they had good tyre compounds to choose from. Oh.
Yeah, my controller did the disconnected thing again and just smashed me into the wall, and I lost a wheel.
Oh no!
But now we know it can happen. That's a thing that can happen.
This is true. Did you do it where Maldonado went off?
No, I don't think I did actually.
Practice, okay.
But now I can watch you.
Oh dear.
And I can put the camera where people keep wanting you to put it and you refuse to.
Where's that?
Cockpit view.
Ah.
What does X do? Oh, hold on. We can get TV style coverage of your qualifying now.
Dear.
So that's what we're going to do. I'm not commentating for you though, because we have business to attend to, and that business is complaining.
Yes. Let's be British.
So let's touch for a second again on what you mentioned briefly, that there is new TV coverage in the UK.
Yes.
That I found underwhelming would be a diplomatic way of putting it.
Yeah.
And something that surprised me, and I want to get your thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself missing Susie Perry.
Yes.
I found myself bothered, actually, more bothered than I thought I would be, that it was just men there.
Yeah.
Particularly because Coulthard and Webber, even though they work fantastically together, those two and Steve Jones, they're basically the same man.
Yes,
so it's like three clones.
All with slightly awkward accents.
Yes.
It's like they've gone for who can not be British, and then when Ben Edwards, the only person with a usual British accent, then tries to speak, he calls Karun Chandok Karuna the entire way through. I was like, he's not a beer. He's not a beer. That's Corona.
Well, you know, that's his thing, though, isn't it? He's got a sort of air of drinking a Singapore Sling on the veranda while growling at foreigners.
But yeah, I miss Susie, and the lightness that she brought to it. Whereas I don't know who the new guy is. I don't know what he's done before, but I found his attempts of comedy and like the "get in my son" hashtags and all of that kind of. There was a bit of dubstep thrown in as well. It just smacks of "throw me the kitchen sink, please."
Yeah. I'm getting very much over this bant, as the kids call it. I'm over banter as an idea. I think it's become so ingrained in British culture that it's lost its charm. Like it was something very understated. It was an understated portion of British character that there was this distinct humour that you don't get anywhere else, that you tend to find in social groups and the pub and stuff, that was kind of friendly and quick-witted sparring, and then it's just become overplayed, and that defeats the whole object of it and being British. The whole point of being British is you don't brag and everything's understated. If you have to say it, that's very bad form. It's very bad taste.
Everyone's trying to outdo Top Gear.
Yes, that hits it on the head much better than I was able to. That's exactly it.
Oh, I've hit the barrier much better than what I wanted to.
I tell you what, though, what I'm seeing is I'm diagnosing why I keep having these problems, because I'm watching you back, and occasionally there's just this like momentary freeze.
Oh.
And that's what it is. Like the game's freezing on my side, and just retaining my last controller input.
Oh crap!
So if I was turning at the moment it happens, then I turn into the barrier.
Well, that's crap.
Now, I mean, I said when Channel 4 took over this, I had two criteria really. One, don't put adverts over cars on track.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair to them, they've done.
No.
But that means that the build-up is 90% adverts.
Yeah. And 10% shit.
And I agree with you that Steve Jones is for want of a better term, a smarmy bastard.
Yeah. And I didn't like that Jake guy from BBC when he was the children's presenter one. I didn't like
No.
him for the exact same reason that he's doing the Too Cool for School. And
Yes.
nothing turns me off more than someone who's got that smarmy, I'm a little bit good, I'm holding an iPad in a really aggressive fashion, but trying to look cool at the same time with one thumb in my pocket. Cunt.
Yeah, exactly. And you get enough of that from DC, to be honest.
Yeah. Only he has a massive chin, so I don't go near him.
Have your eye out, that mate. No, it's exactly. It's the first time that I've sat and watched it and thought, do you know what? Sky's coverage is better.
Yeah, and they've turned into a bunch of moany old men, which is what's also quite funny there as well.
I mean, the problem is for me that it is impossible for me to watch it legally, because I'm outside the country. So, yeah, not really an option for me. And I mean, let me tell you, German coverage of Formula One is dire, genuinely dire. I mean, even the commentators sound disinterested. So I just steer clear of it. And so I'm missing the BBC coverage massively. Are you staying in the pits in protest?
Yeah, maybe this should be this is how the last few minutes go.
Well, I tell you what, we'll get back on that topic, I suppose, since we've already been digressing, and then during the race we can sort of expand on it and talk about what we think now we've seen the cars out on track together, or in the looser sense of the word. So, what then, in your opinion, can be done? I mean, we know Bernie has already used the exact word crap. That's the exact word he used. That it was crap. And to be fair, he was its biggest proponent before it came in. So I guess it was one of those things where he thought it was a good idea and it just proved not to be.
Sure.
But I mean, what would you do? Would you just roll it back, or do you think there is room for improvement?
I think there is room for improvement if they want to keep the elimination format, but I think it needs to be done in a flexible way so that they take the lap time that it takes. So there's a couple of things that smacked wrong with me. One is that it's every 90 seconds and that needs to expand and contract depending on maybe the track that you're on. But I can understand why that would be mega difficult to have the gap between each driver changing race on race, because for Austria you'd only need it every 75 seconds, whereas in Austin you'd need it every like 110 or something like that, because you don't have the time for the driver to get round and start a lap to respond. And with the elimination as well that you've got that's going on, at no point did they then flash to that car and say that driver is now eliminated, maybe because they was all in the pits, but because the action was so focused and heavily weighted to the top guys going around and just picking off laps in their own personal battle for Q1 honours, which is fine, it meant that actually, unless you had someone explaining to you what was going on with the tower on the side to who's eliminated, it seemed like the action was still geared towards these are your bottom seven and we'll show you them at the end. And so it was like no one had caught up with what was going on before.
I'm with you 100%. There's so much wrong with this format of qualifying that it's kind of hard to keep my thoughts in order. I mean, lap one really pissed me off, first of all, because you just had a series of names shifting around on the left-hand side of the screen with no context. Like, you're not watching the TV coverage properly if you're just watching this tower at the side of the screen.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed that all strategic element of qualifying has been removed. There's no longer, this idea of, well, it's a 15-minute session or a 20-minute session, and we think it's going to rain in 5 minutes, so we'll get out early, or we think the rain will stop before the end of the session, so let's sit in and, save on wear and push later on when we think the rain's cleared. I feel it's hamstrung everything.
Mm-hmm. I'm just doing a Haas, by the way, going out now.
It's neutered Formula One.
And it's got rid of quite a lot of the strategy that you could do, because no longer will someone sit and wait and try their luck. It's just that they're caught out because of the way how things are done.
Exactly, and I think it's one of its. I still managed 11th, which wasn't too bad, but I
Yeah.
could have gone a lot faster.
Go you, outdoing the other Toro Rossos.
Who, by the way, I'm incredibly excited about this season.
Yes, it's looking good now, isn't it?
Yeah, as I said, I don't believe they're actually the third fastest team. I think this kind of thing is a quirk of the qualifying, but that's something that I want to complain about in the race.
Okay.
To be fair, you were a good 2 tenths clear of the Merryman.
Merrymen. Yeah, I fucked up all of my laps because I kept forgetting that DRS makes you go faster down the straight, therefore you need to brake earlier for the corners.
Well, easy mistake to make. You were probably busy thinking, am I going to be eliminated in the next 12 seconds?
Exactly. my mind was a flutter.
Well, and tell you what, this is a beautiful moment as well, because this is the first time we've had a terminal crash on Failcast F1.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean a crash as in-game crash, not a computer system crash.
Light a candle for that Toro Rosso. Esther Ben is being taken to the Taco Grove.
I mean, I'm quite impressed that I took the honours there, because it could have been either of us.
Yeah.
You may have outqualified me all the way through 2014, but I was the first one to have a terminal accident.
Which, to be fair, trumps all. Donald trumps all.
It Donald Trumps everything. I mean, this is the height of what we aspire to. It's all well and good. There's an art, I suppose, like clipping off bits of your nose repeatedly, or trying to qualify at Canada and failing on 4 attempts, ending each attempt with a puncture. I mean, that's a special kind of talent. But to do all that and then manage to just casually, as if by magic, completely bin it on one of the tamest corners in F1, I think that's testament to our hard work and dedication, and I hope the people watching appreciate that.
Definitely.
Well, congratulations, co-masters, on completely removing all element of strategy from this game as well, because starting contra strategy buys me an extra lap.
Yeah, I know. What's the point? What is the point?
There is no point. There is no point. So, what I was going to say is I feel no wiser now as to what the form of different cars is. I mean, for a moment, it briefly looked like McLaren were the third fastest team.
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised at how non-crap they've been so far, which has been a positive story for me, because whilst I do have some kind of enjoyment level of watching them suffer and burn, so long as Ron's at the heart of it all, I feel sorry for Fernando, Homeless Alonso, and Jensen being thrown out of the back of a helicopter.
Yeah, I thought that was something nice to see, actually. Jensen Button being parachuted out of an aircraft.
Yeah, that was the best bit of our UK coverage so far.
But no, I feel none the wiser about any of the cars, save for Mercedes, which, let's be honest, was no surprise to anybody.
No, although I was slightly worried at just how... Oh, someone's gone off. Hulkenberg.
Good.
Massively into the wall. Yeah, I'm a bit... I was surprised at the field spread. I thought that it was going to be much, much closer, and I don't know if that will then bear true much better in the long runs. But I didn't expect, like, Sauber's and Renault's and Haas's so much, and Manners to be like 3-4 seconds off the pace.
I don't believe they are.
No, and I hope they aren't.
I genuinely don't believe they are. I think it's just this qualifying system, again, masking the true form. I mean, I think it's fair to say Mercedes are comfortably on top. But anything below that, I don't take anything for granted. I feel fairly confident saying Ferrari are a solid second, but it is very much second. I thought they might be a bit closer. And
Yeah.
it's interesting to see that when Vettel put it second with 5/10 behind Hamilton, they seem quite content with that to say, yeah, that's us.
Yeah, and that worried me somewhat.
Exactly.
That they are happy with that being like their pitch goal. I don't know if that's because they thought, oh, Rosberg's having another brick of it, or not. But I thought, oh no, not one of those. Not another year of this. So,
Well, and what gave it away was he was looking very homeless and trampy again in his opening interview, Rosberg. So I thought, yeah, that's it.
yeah.
He's lost the championship. He hasn't had a shave today. He's lost the championship. It's really funny to be able to say that, but I genuinely believe that's the indicator. After he lost in the final round in 14, and he came back 2015 looking like he'd been drinking on a park bench the entire off-season.
Yes.
That just told me straight away he's not in the place he needs to be mentally to do his best driving, and it's the same now.
Oh, who's crashed?
Same accident. Controller just failed me. I was comfortably running 6th as well.
Oh, mate. You was channeling your inner Max.
I made some good overtakes. I got from 11th to 9th in the first corner, and then clean overtakes all the way up to 6th. And the cars 5th to 1st were pulling away quite comfortably, but they only did so really because I made one illegal overtake on Perez that I had to basically come to a standstill to. But I get to watch you now, so.
So I'm over driving to the millionth degree.
Oh, Maldonado's just put it into the barrier behind you.
I may have botched him there a little bit. So what would you do to sort out the quali format then?
Good question. I mean, the thing is, my temptation is to take the easy route and to. What happened to you there? The temptation would be to just roll it back to what it was before.
Yeah.
I don't know how I genuinely felt about it, but having seen the new format, I now realise that I liked it a lot more than I realised I did at the time. If that makes any sense. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to say I don't think I understood how much I appreciated that it was done that way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still an advocate of the 1 hour 12 lap system.
Which
I know turns some people off, but I stand by it. I think it's a system that allows strategic variation. It allows drivers to decide when to time their runs.
Mm-hmm.
And it means that, most of the time you've got a fairly even spread of cars throughout the session. I mean, occasionally it can be pretty dull that, the first 20 minutes no one's out on track, and we remember that was a problem.
Yes.
So maybe a combination of that with some kind of elimination element could work. I don't know if that would be too complicated, but maybe have some kind of shootout at some point in the session. That means there's less time to just sit around potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how you would necessarily do it, or whether there's like a form of pre-qualifying again.
I think I enjoyed having gone back and watched the F1 show 96 on YouTube, where he puts up all of the old 90 qualifying sessions and stuff like that. That's how I spend quite a lot of my dinners when I'm cooking dinner, just watching back old F1 sessions. And there is a beauty and simplicity to 12 laps, 1 hour, off you go. And that was really nice. I wonder if there's something around if people were worried about people not going out on track, doing it so that you have to do you get one run per 15-minute segment or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to do it in an organic and F1 way without hamstringing it with these restrictions that say, well, you must be out at this time. I mean, I still think that 1 hour 12 lap system provided the best entertainment overall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not totally against the idea of a return to 1 lap qualifying, but on balance, I think I prefer the idea of having a session that's open to all drivers. But all I do know for sure is that this system is unsustainable. I mean, it works in the looser sense, and yeah, maybe it improves next round. Maybe people get used to the idea of, I mean, how Bernie explained it at first was that, well, the cars will be out all the time in the first session, and we just saw that wasn't the case.
No.
And I cannot comprehend why a team like I saw that, where a team like Manor or a team like Haas would do 2 laps, know that the elimination is about to start, know that their cars are at the bottom, and then just decide to pit the cars anyway.
Mm.
And Jenson Button, I remember, he said that he felt he wouldn't have been eliminated when he was, were it not for the fact that when he came in to change tyres, the pit lane was crowded with cars coming in and being sort of rotated back into the pit box. That meant he just couldn't get down and out through the pits as quickly as he needed to.
Yeah.
It's a system that has too many stupid restrictions.
Yeah, restrictions for the wrong point.
And I want rid of it, and I think Bernie wants rid of it. And you know, Bernie wanting something is 90% of everything in Formula One.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as Ferrari don't object, and I don't think they will, then it's the right call for the sport. Because I've never seen, as you quite rightly said, I've never seen such a passionate reaction on Twitter before. Yeah. I was reading through Twitter comments from people, and it's a ratio of something like 50-1 people in favour of scrapping it. I saw very, very few people who were interested at all in seeing the idea develop. Which actually brings us quite nicely onto something. Oh, is that you out of the race?
It is. Should we have another go?
Double terminal finish.
It was. Do you know what? It was me getting the rage on Hamilton.
Simon, this is our zenith. This is what? What? Are you seeing this podium?
No, hang on. I've not got there yet. What? Mate, that's a beautiful podium.
This is our sunflowers, mate. This is our Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Oh.
It's just a masterpiece.
a Swede and the signs. And the Sauber.
That's phenomenal. I'm sorry, no disrespect to Carlos Sainz, but he just won this race by 5.5 seconds.
Million the points.
That is phenomenal.
Why is everyone 8 and 9 laps down? That's bizarre.
It's beautiful is what it is.
Oh dear.
That is incredible. Well, what do we do now? Bloody hell.
Should we restart?
I don't think we can, because this game's stupid.
Oh,
we can do a race with a random grid.
Yeah, that'll do. Whilst we're still ranting.
While we're still ranting. I feel like I was so engrossed watching you there that it didn't quite go how I planned. I'm going to switch cars, though. You know, keep things fresh.
Oh yeah, I'll switch your route as well. This is interesting to actually be racing in different cars that I don't normally get to play, like online.
Do you know? Part of me was tempted to try the Mercedes because they've been competitive in 3 games now, and I've not driven them in the last 2 games at all.
I'll be Red Bollocks then.
Do you know? I'm starting to have fondness for Red Bull again, and I kind of hate myself for it.
I do like that matte finish on their car. Now that I've seen it actually in action and flowing around, I think it looks very pretty.
It does look good, and I'm not too proud to say that I was wrong in my initial judgment of it.
Yeah, same for me with the livery as well. I thought the livery looked really, really garish, but actually, it looks quite sweet.
Okay, we're on a random grid.
Ooh.
So not even realistic. We're going random grid.
Excellent. For where are we going? Austria still?
Yeah, we'll stay Australia since that's kind of the topic of the day. And normally our co-op episodes don't coincide with the Grand Prix that we are discussing at the time. And obviously we'll be doing a Silverstone episode. A Silverstone for us. That's Australia for everyone else. At some point this week to talk about the race. And by God, the race has to save this weekend.
Yes, yeah, because it's been god awful. I mean, hardly anyone going out because of the wet dryness, which was fine. Rosberg having that ice bun for no reason, which I thought was funny as well. Yeah, the race has to do something, but I'm with you. I don't really have a grasp of where people genuinely are. Weird.
I think Renault were flattered by that qualifying session, and Haas and Manor in particular were hamstrung by it.
Yeah, definitely Haas.
I'm 8th.
I'm 4th.
Oh, you jammy sod.
Because they don't seem to like Kvyat actually qualifying well in this game. I don't know why. I'm always shit off the line, by the way.
I'm shit for 15 of 15 laps, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'm gonna go contra strategy. Why not?
Ooh,
let's load a car setup as well.
What's the setup doing in 6th?
Problem is, all my setups in this game are for Manners or for McLarens, so I don't know what setup I've just selected, but it's one that I entitled ASF.
Aggressive as fuck.
I'm not going to finish this race anyway, because this controller problem just keeps killing me.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Sauber. Did that clear a path for you, or did that take you out?
No, it spun me round and put me to the back.
Oh, sorry. That was entirely my fault as well. Hamilton, Perez, Maldonado.
And I've lost half my front wing.
Oh, no.
Because the Sauber you hit, he span and went straight into the side of me.
Great.
And I'm going to have to pit because this car refuses to turn without that end plate.
That was entirely my fault as well, sorry.
Don't worry about it. Incompetence is our hallmark. So, no, I have no idea where the cars are, and I just hope the race leaves me feeling a bit more confident about it, because it can be, you know how it is with F1 cars, that you can have cars that qualify really well in clean air and then suffer in dirty air.
Yeah.
And, it could be the Haas is a great qualifying car, actually, and could have out-qualified both Renaults. But we don't see that because of the nature of the qualifying session. And then in the race, they're hamstrung by dirty running.
Yeah.
Which was the adult release of Disney's treasured Cool Runnings.
Excellent. Lube the luge.
Well, I've caught up to the back of Sainz, but now I have to pit. As does Sainz, actually.
I was going to say there was a secondary collision that happened down at turn 14, but I don't know who was involved. Can I also say as well, Haas have changed their livery, and it looks better.
I didn't notice that, actually. What's they done? There's
more white as opposed to it being silver. So it just looks a bit more crisp to me. I'm delighted that Renault are actually yellow. I think we need to shout that one out.
Yeah, I actually wanted to make sure we brought that up this episode because we were so disappointed that Haas let us down on that to have a yellow car in F1, and one that's so neatly designed as well. I like the little hexagon motif over the engine cover as well. I think that's very cool.
Yeah.
It's like they've stolen it from Channel 4. And I think it looks good on TV cameras.
Yeah.
It responds well to being filmed, which is, encouraging, because anything we can do to improve the visuality of the sport as well, it is a good thing. I mean, I watch with my girlfriend, and she never used to like Formula One, and now it's like a big activity for us that we spend, the afternoon together and we watch the races and stuff. And she's very much disappointed by the switch to Channel 4, first of all, partly because Susie Perry was adding a woman's voice to things, which
Yeah.
we can't underestimate how important that can actually be in overall presentation.
Yeah.
But also, she liked the human story behind the racing that Channel 4 don't seem to be showing. The intimate interviews with drivers, the almost like a wrestling style quality of humanizing the characters.
Yeah.
And she always found it a pain that all the cars were the same color. If you weren't intimately familiar with the sport and what teams were sponsored by who, then it was very hard to visually identify who she was watching.
Sure.
And I know you and I and many listening to this will find it quite easy to identify the cars. We're a different demographic that F1's already got its hooks into and doesn't need to appeal to.
Sure.
It's people like my girlfriend, actually, that are not natural watchers of Formula One, but have been proven to be able to get into it. And, she really does get into it. But the fact that all the cars look the same just hampers her enjoyment because she's constantly having to question who it is she's watching. You don't always get the best picture of the drivers' helmets on the TV footage.
No.
And the angles are obviously there to emphasize the speed of the car, which means you get like a fleeting glimpse of a flash of color inside the cockpit. And you don't always get an immediate response on the on-screen graphics, and if you do, then you're not watching the race anyway. I just think the whole thing could be better presented, and having teams make interesting and eye-catching livery choices is good for everybody. That's why I think the Red Bull's better than I gave it credit for that exact reason.
Yes. No, I completely agree with that. Also, I think Renault deserve a shout out for actually bringing back a little bit about team launches that aren't on the track, on a website, or in a CFD like mock-up image. And they have a hint of Flavio Briatore about it by bringing it up on a bloody raft on a beach somewhere. And it reminded me of that time when Benetton launched their car on a volcano. That kind of thing. I was like, yes, bring back stupid launches again.
That's what F1's about. Ostentatious displays of wealth.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I've never been a Renault man historically.
Sure.
But I am finding myself incredibly supportive of the new Renault team. I'm very happy that they saved a team that's the backbone of F1, in my opinion.
Yeah, because it's been around in so many different guises, but it is still the same team, no matter what you call it.
And that they really seem to be taking F1 seriously again. They're treating it with respect. They're having proper car launches. They're doing their best to be as professional as possible. And I like that they seem to be the only manufacturer that is respectful of F1 at the moment. I mean, Mercedes, you wouldn't really know as a car company they were doing F1. At least not in what I've been exposed to. Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, the road car company and the race team are wholly separate.
Yeah.
Whereas Renault are shouting, if you look at their Twitter, they're shouting about the fact they're in F1, and they've got, a Renault Rio or a Megane or something up there on the stage with the F1 car, emphasizing that link and saying, look, this is our heritage. We build fun small cars for the road, but we're also passionate and successful in motorsport, and we're consummate engineers. And, we're as woven into the history of F1 as Ferrari are. So, yeah, a lot of love for Renault this year, and I wish them all the best.
I second that one, definitely.
Can we talk very briefly about Rio Hirschberger?
Yes.
Out-qualifying Pascal Wehrlein, to everyone's surprise. He had a very respectable FP3, did old Rio.
Yes, because he was right with the pace again there as well. And I'm thoroughly delighted because the guy does genuinely have pace. I still maintain that Pascal is probably faster of the two. But I thought he was going to take longer to get up to speed. and I thought he'd have a much stronger second season if he had the chance to stay around. But no, he can keep doing that again for a month for Sundays, and I'll be quite happy. And what I really, really like as well about Rio is that the whole of Indonesia is behind him. It reminds me of when, like, Karthikeyan, I suppose, for India, you'd have it. Whenever like Sato got into Japan, you get like the person that's kind of flying the flag for the nation, no matter how shit the car is. And it's brought this whole new fan base to Formula One, and they don't genuinely have a clue. So they're uploading. Someone's uploaded someone about Haryanto going fastest on YouTube, but he's not. He's going 21st in FP3, but it's put the thing is Haryanto on pole, and people are like, "You should be apologising for this" in the comments and like thumbing it down. And the guy's going, his response was literally, "But I'm Indonesian." And I was like, "This is amazing."
Oh, so what he was saying is that, like, you know, like Trump for president, he was saying Haryanto for pole, and people were misinterpreting it as him actually taking pole.
Yeah, but uploading a video of him going 21st in FP3. It was just hilarious. But there's a lot of it's nice to see some positivity flowing into Formula One, which just is surrounded by so much shit, as we've been shouting about today. And another story for positivity, I think, as well, is your Toro Rosso guys.
Yes, I was concerned that we might start to see a little bit of a reliability hiccup, because as we talked last episode, they've got a very tightly packaged gearbox.
Yes,
that they were concerned was not suitable, not suitably visible to be worked on in case of failure, and that it would actually hamper them long run. But it turns out that no, that's not really the case, and the consensus is still very much that they are on top of these aero regulations in a way many teams are not. And it's very, very encouraging to see, particularly because it's basically Minardi.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just goes to show how much money talks in Formula One, but also that, you know, James Key is the heir apparent to Adrian Newey in the way that people were saying Allison was going to be.
Yeah.
But I think it's Key. I think Key is going to become, pardon the pun, the key man.
Superb. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that we know what that team was capable of doing with a shitty budget. Now that they've got the budget, and to me, again, now that they've got separate engines to what Red Bull have got again, so you've got the Ferrari / tag difference that's going on. It separates them out again from Red Bull, so that they can prove to everyone else again that actually they are a team that are competent and successful in their own right, given the right finance.
Yeah, and I think it's good to see that being rewarded. I think they're a team that have consistently over the last few years produced very, very respectable cars, like they did throughout their history as Minardi. And Minardi were always hamstrung by a lack of testing budget and an inability to secure a competitive engine. And Toro Rosso were always hampered, I think, firstly by the success of Red Bull, but also by the fact that, you know, it takes time to build up once you have access to new resources. But it's been a continual improvement year on year, and I already think last year's car was one of the best chassis on the field. And this season, I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that, I mean, while I don't think they're necessarily third on merit in qualifying, I think they're capable of podium finishes this year if the wind blows in their favour. And that'll be very, very good to see. I just hope it's Sainz and not Verstappen.
I absolutely agree with all of that. And I also think that there is the potential, if they get a good first half of the year, that they'll be ahead of Red Bull come the end of the year in the constructors, if it plays well early on.
They will. And see, you mentioned Red Bull there, and my temptation, as always, is to begin talking about comparative form and saying, "Oh, isn't it controversial?" But again, thanks to qualifying, I don't believe I actually know what the form is.
No, exactly.
I don't know if Kvyat was caught out by timing or a technical issue, or if he genuinely was that slow. You know, you can say, well, look at the time on the clock. That's the time he did. And it's like, yes, he did do that time, but you don't know
before
under
or
what
after the
conditions.
cutout? Lol.
And I have to sort of give a grudging respect as well, by the way, to Haas.
Yeah.
I was listening the other day to an interview with Steve Matchett, you know, the former Benetton mechanic.
Yes, who seems to have popped up as a Sky News F1 pundit.
He's a big pundit in America as well. He's part of the presenting team for NBC's coverage.
Ah, okay.
And he was saying that now he's not working in F1. It gives him a chance to walk up and down the paddock and the pit lane, and he's working for TV, so he gets to really look around. And he said, credit to Haas where it's due, they look like they've been in F1 for 5 years. He said, you know, like you'd think they'd have the basics in position, and then the sort of final flourishes wouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
But he said he was very surprised to see that they've got branded wheel gun bags, which is kind of the last thing on the list. And that the compressed air canisters that are provided to top up the tyres, they are obviously canister shaped, so they don't stand up at 90 degrees, and it means the pressure can be messed up and stuff. And they've built, along with every other team, a little holder that means you can stand it up vertically on the garage floor. And he said, like, that's an attention to detail that you don't attribute to a new team. Like he said, they've got these beautifully machined overhead lighting rigs to put the little lighting pods into, and everything's done to a very high standard. And I have to admit to being impressed by that. I did think they might try and half-arse it a little bit because they seem very complacent in the. They seem very, very complacent coming into the season.
Yeah.
You know, Gene Haas talking like, "Oh, it ain't no thing," you know.
Yeah, whatevs.
When F1 is the biggest thing in motorsport. But it seems that behind all the swagger, he was taking it very seriously. And even though I still don't want them to have success out of the gate, I'm not averse to them having success in the long run if they deserve it. And it sounds like they're taking the right steps.
Which is good, because I think there's a lot of, oh, Vettel, no. Just no Vettel, never mind.
Just no, really, Vettel, just no.
Oh, hang on now, I've got Brotas, 77us. With minor segue, Martin Brundle narrating a Shaw advert for Williams F1 that appears just as much as Sky F1's coverage has to sing that "Just Drive" song every 5 fucking seconds as well, which drives me up the wall. But yeah, Martin Brundle doing adverts for deodorants does not sit well with me. Especially when it's basically saying it won't let you down. But if you just look at that in the context of the programme, it's basically saying that Sky F1's TV coverage will not let you down because he doesn't mention Shaw just beforehand.
There we go. It was only a matter of time before that happened.
No.
But that's good because it means I can pick up my phone and open the Twitters because we've been Twittering today.
Yes.
And we've been asking for people to make suggestions on what they'd do to improve qualifying and that we would discuss it. And that's exactly what we're going to do now.
Yes.
So big hello to Rich Sutton. Thanks for your input there, mate. He has written to us to say that he would give 10 laps of fuel and half an hour. Do with it what you will. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't mind that so much because it proper compresses everything down. I do like the purist of just having a nice neat hour, but that still gets in a bit of strategy, a little bit of minding the traffic, but would also give you enough time to cram in those laps and have something going on track almost all the time, wouldn't it?
No, I was going to say I like it as a system. I mean, maybe if it was 20 laps in an hour, the same effect is there, because it allows you again to sort of time your laps, take them when you want to take them. It also means that your early laps are not likely to be your fastest, and it encourages you to burn off that fuel so you can get to a stage where you're running as light as possible, sort of a la old school qualifying.
Uh-huh.
The more I talk about it, the more I'm actually a big fan of this concept. Nice job, Rich.
You've cured Formula One.
Now think about it for a second, right? Every car's loaded with a fixed amount of fuel.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to go as fast as possible, which means they need to be on the lowest fuel possible, and you can't pump fuel out. So you've got half an hour or maybe an hour. You have to, at some point, burn off all that fuel to make sure that you're running as light as possible when the track's in as good a position as you want it. And to be fair, it might encourage teams to go out super early, burn off all the fuel, and then sit in the pits with 3 laps in the tank.
Yeah.
And then go out, right at the end of the session, or when the weather breaks, or so on and so forth. But not everyone will make that decision, and there is potential there to kind of mix things up a little bit. I mean, the problem I always have is that a lot of qualifying concepts come from this perspective that we don't want the same guy on pole all the time. And I disagree with that fundamentally.
The fastest person should be on pole.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I don't like reverse grids or any kind. Like Bernie was saying that his suggestion would be to take the final top 10 from the last race and incrementally add time to their qualifying time based on when they finished last round.
What?
That's a stupid system because it disincentivizes you to win races, which should never be the case.
No.
But it becomes incredibly hard to follow.
Yeah.
On a on-camera perspective.
Yeah, I would prefer, if we was going to start penalising things, I would almost go down the weight route, because the end time that you see is still the end time, and whatever detriment there is on there is something that you visually don't have to deal with and then explain and understand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't have to explain all the time what's going on. It should be apparent that cars are trying to set the fastest lap within this time period.
Yeah.
I'm concerned that they've got this obsession with mixing the grid up in an artificial way.
Yes.
And I know why. They want to see people overtaking and defensive driving and stuff like we saw between Grosjean and Hamilton today.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the same way DRS attracted criticism, having this happen through artificial means kind of dilutes the point of F1.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, boo on you, sir.
Yes.
I don't think there's any need to artificially spice up the show. I think the show can be spiced up adequately by suitable rule changes that keep the teams within a certain competitive bracket.
Yeah. And aero packages that allow for people to be a bit closer.
Yeah, that we managed for 20
IndyCar.
years quite comfortably.
Yeah. IndyCar. They have cars that look aggressive, sound aggressive, are driven aggressively and like to crash into each other, and bits do generally fall off the cars quite quickly. But the one thing they have got right is that actually aero-wise, you can run relatively close to each other and not have the dirty air effect killing everyone. So,
I mean, I heard the other day, and I was shocked to hear it, that there's a ban in F1 on wind tunnel testing that simulates running in dirty air.
What?
Yeah, I didn't know about this. Pat Simmons was talking about it on the same podcast that I heard Steve Matchett on. A different episode, of course, but he was saying that, because someone asked him, what's the problem with the cars? And he was saying, well, the problem is it's very hard to know how they behave in dirty air until you get into the track, and by then the design's already locked in and the cars have been built. And they said, well, surely you simulate that. And he said, no, you're not allowed. You're only allowed to develop your cars in a clean air scenario. So everyone optimizes their cars to run in clean air because it's the only thing they can truly optimize for. And you'd be taking a risk, making guesswork, to try and do anything else. And so he says what that means is you get a car that produces great numbers in the wind tunnel and you feel confident, and then you go into the season and find that actually when the airflow is disturbed, it doesn't perform the way you would hope. So that's something that you could fix very easily by removing that ban, and I can't see what that ban achieves.
No, not at all.
It doesn't reduce any costs, not meaningfully.
No.
It just informs your design decisions.
Which
And if
then you
anything,
spend research money trying to chase out on track when it doesn't work, when you are racing in dirty air, because you're going to be surrounded by cars all the time.
Exactly. So there we go. That's something else that can go.
Saved it. We're saving F1 lap by lap by incompetence.
Or terminal accident by terminal accident, as the case may be. 4 in a day, by the way, is pretty impressive.
That is. We're by crashing.
In summary, though, I'd like to say that's a more normal podium, by the way.
Yes.
I like they've even got the model's despondent clapping animation down with the due I don't care about this.
Yes.
That's expressed at race events.
I've just been told I've got to sleep with that one.
I'm going to his hotel room later. No, I'd like to say that I believe that if we were running the old qualifying system, we might very well have seen, certainly at the back, a more diverse mix of Sauber, Renault, Haas, and Manor. I honestly don't know who would have genuinely been bottom. I suspect it would have been Gutierrez, actually, based on his differential to Grosjean. I think Grosjean would have led the Manor-Haas mix, but I could honestly have seen the Sauber slipping into their clutches, and I was encouraged to see that even under this stupid system, that Manor and Haas were separated by like less than 2/10, even though Manor only ran 1 lap, so it's not really a true reflection. And the fact that Haas were within stroking distance of the backs of the Saubers. So I think we were right in our pre-season summary that the back is harder to call than the front, but I still don't feel as yet we've seen the true nature of that part of the grid.
No, not at all. No, I agree with that. You've done a faster slap than me. Well done.
Where was I there? 129.976. So I was
4/10.
That would have been, in theory, good enough to qualify 4th.
Yeah, podium man.
I was getting some nice clean laps in, but issues.
Like F1 all over.
I hope I resolve the next game, but I think it's a network issue. I think because my internet isn't fast enough, because Germany's internet is fucking awful. It means there's like a temporary desync between you and me, and so the game just doesn't process my input. I'm going to do some Googling to see if I can't fix that in time for the Silverstone round, which I do hope everyone will join us for.
Yeah, indeed. It's going to be a corker, because we usually do poorly there. So be prepared for even more incompetence. And the F1 race of Melbourne will have won, so we'll be back with more probably angry comments and thoughts and feelings about that. Do we want to stick in a prediction for the result?
I can't see past Lewis for the win. My podium would actually be at this point Hamilton, Raikkonen, Vettel, because I think Raikkonen was unlucky to be so far off Seb, and I actually think we were wrong to say he won't turn up this season. So I'm going to say, controversially, that Raikkonen will finish ahead of Vettel.
I'm going to go for so my crazy podium: Hamilton, Vettel, Sainz.
I'd love that podium.
I reckon Rosberg will win
it.
Raikkonen will fall asleep. Verstappen will hopefully basically get slowed down by all the commentary team's ejaculate landing on his tyres. And that'll be that.
And I could see Force India finishing ahead of both Williams as well.
Yeah. Williams hasn't turned up for me yet.
And in the battle of the back, let's just narrow it down to Haas and Manor. What are your predictions?
Haas will beat Manor, but Grosjean will be top of the pile.
I'm going to second that, but I'm going to say that bottom 4 will finish, if they finish at all. Grosjean, Verline, Haryanto, Gutierrez.
Gutierrez. Oh yes.
I really.
We don't rate him at all, do we?
I think he's arguably good enough for F1, but there's just other people I'd rather see, and I don't think he's got to grips with the car as well as his teammate has. And I think we've all underestimated Haryanto a bit unfairly, a bit prematurely. I could actually see it finishing Grosjean, Verline, Gutierrez, Haryanto, but my gut is telling me that it won't be that way and that Gutierrez is going to struggle. Here's hoping, kids.
Oh, wow. Not the finest Mexican. He's here with us now.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, you guys all have an amazing rest of Saturday and enjoy the race. We'll be up. Well, I'm going to be watching it live through non-legal ways on Tinternet, and I shall be live tweeting, so be prepared to do @Satorimon for that. Will you be tweeting out anything when you watch it, mate?
I'm sure I will. It might be full of expletives. And I tell you what, let's try and come mainstream or anything. If you've got an opinion you want to share with us, because I know some of our names are, well, actually my name's a pain in the arse and uses up lots of your characters. So let's go #FailcastF1, and we will search the hashtag before we record the next episode, and we can have a nice bit of chat and banter about it.
Fabulous. Good call. You guys will take care, and happy crashing.